We are delighted that you're joining us for another podcast of Wake Up Align, and it is the podcast for chiropractors where we get to talk about chiropractic lifestyle, and topics of interest. You can contact us through our email, and that is mailbag@amcfamily.com. Welcome back, everybody. We have a very special episode of Wake Up Align to share with you today. In the studio, I have Dr. Melissa Licari, and Dr. Licari has her own story, her own journey inside of our AMC Align family, and I would like to explore that just a little bit for our listeners, Dr. Melissa. But you recently did a class on commitment, and that was a focal point for you listeners who are not part of our AMC Align family. We have a focal point every month that we roll out and ask our membership to engage with. And the focal point that she brought recently was on commitment. And so we want to discuss that topic today. And some of the people who heard that class will be listening to it. And so it's a great refresh for them. And then you'll have people today, Dr. Melissa, who have never heard that class and maybe bringing that to them brand new and fresh. So first, let's start with who Dr. Melissa is. A little bit about your journey to this point today. You know, go back to when you were introduced to AMC and what AMC did for you. Just share with the listeners a little bit about who you are, personal stuff. Let them get to know you.
All right. Well, when I first got into practice, I made it a requirement in my head that I was going to do this on my own. I didn't want a management group involved. I had seen it in the past with another doctor where all they ever talked about was money. And I was like, well, that's not why I got into chiropractic. You know, I do want to make a living, but it's not all about that. So when I went to, it was a FCA meeting, right? Getting my continuing ed credits, I bumped into Coach Judy. Mm-hmm. And she was standing there at one of the tables that AMC had, and she just politely waved and said hi. And I was like a little offended that she didn't pitch me. So my husband was walking behind me and said, you know what, I've tried to get her to look at you, and you know, what more do you have? So we listened to the CD.
Sure.
So everything about the CD seemed genuine. And I said, well, if we're going to do the management thing, let's just start here.
Yeah. Okay.
So we ended up coming to a first boot camp, and it started out with prayer. Mm-hmm. Everyone was really kind. You all knew my name. So it was just really overall heartwarming. Mm-hmm. And the material really sounded like it was something that I needed. Right. So when we decided to join, 2-3 months out of the gate, after digesting all the material, right? We ate, slept, breathed that stuff. We ended up doubling and tripling.
Nice.
Not long after that, maybe about 6 months later, we quadrupled. So that really propelled us to grow. That growth is what we needed. And then we had enough confidence to start a family. And 17 years later, after, you know, having that successful practice, I've been coaching here at AMC, instructing, and now February of this year, I've retired. So it's been a really nice journey. Now I get to give back to chiropractors, which is really fantastic.
Yeah, awesome. I think that's so funny that you had it in your mind, like, I'm going to do this. I've heard the bad stories, and then you got offended when you weren't pitched or approached, like, I don't need you, but I still want you to acknowledge me and come after me, right?
Yeah.
That's hysterical. What about a little bit about your family? You want to share your husband, kids, what they're into, anything like that with the listeners?
My husband and I have been married for 21 years. We have 2 kids. My daughter Aubrey is 11. My son Christian is 15. My husband was my rock throughout the entire time that I was in practice. He was my office manager. Mm-hmm. And yeah, we just, we love to travel now that we have the time. So we spend time at home tooling around town. We go to different countries now, enjoy the freedom.
What country have you been to lately?
The last trip we went to Japan for 3 weeks, and then we went to Hawaii for a week on the way home.
Oh, just a stopover.
Just to stop by.
We had a layover in Hawaii for 1 week. It's a tough life right there, Dr. Melissa. Yeah. That must be one reason, because you talk about how long your journey is and how long you've been married. And I sit across the table from you and it looks like you're 22 years old. So yeah, maybe the secret is traveling. Maybe that's the fountain of youth. So,
Maybe.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, like I said, it's great to hear that journey. Great to have you here. And I really like to kind of dive into that commitment discussion that you had with our AMC family recently. So set the primer, set the stage on commitment. Like, let's pretend the listeners don't know commitment the way that you know commitment. Where do you start with somebody like from ground zero or point one on commitment?
I think on some level, we know commitment.
Mm-hmm.
When you're little, your parents may give you the commitment, every day before you even leave your room, you're going to make your bed. When you get a little older, before you even go outside, you're going to make the commitment of doing your homework and doing your studying. We know discipline, we know commitment. It's just that as we get older and those commitments get bigger, I think sometimes fear comes into the picture.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think that there's a need to fear. I think that we need to stay curious and explore the decisions and see what's going to be best for us and just try it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The commitments that we ask of our children, the commitments that were asked of us as children, you feel like that's a proving ground for somebody to learn to make commitments and stay committed to stuff? I mean, if you were a parent counseling another parent who's brand new to parenthood, like, would you say that's a pretty big step in your raising of the children?
I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, responsibility not only to yourself but the household. It's not always about you with your commitments in life.
Mm-hmm. So let's turn the page and talk about commitments as an adult. Where would you like to start there? Like, what things do you find, especially with your mentorship work, what things do you wish people would be committed to that they aren't, or don't commit to as strongly as is necessary? Where are they kidding themselves about the commitments or lack thereof that they're making?
I would say with the clients that I have on my roster right now, it's understanding that if you're going to go with the system, that you go all in, because you're never going to know what could have been if you're just going to go halfway and stop. So really the commitment is, if I'm going to move forward and be successful in practice, then I've got to follow through on A, B, and C, and then look at the results and evaluate.
I want to talk about this idea, this concept of being all in on the commitment. I know that I work with people and have worked with people over 20 years who make a commitment, but they're not all in. Like, the commitment goes as far as their comfort or goes as far as when it's easy. How does somebody stop kidding themselves about that? Like, how do they stop with the, you know what I'm talking about, don't you? Like the half-hearted commitment and really go into an all-in commitment. What's your advice?
Just as you were talking, I remember I don't know if it was an exact quote, but Dr. Whalen was speaking in a class a couple months ago, and he said, you're going to have the pain of something. It's either the pain of staying the same or the pain of change. And you've got to determine which one you're going to want to go through. So if you're going to commit to the change, it has to be all in. Otherwise, you're going to live with the thoughts of what could have been. And I think that's the hardest thing for me to digest.
What coulda, woulda, shoulda stuff.
Yeah, what's left on the table, what I could have been as a leader, as a doctor. I don't want to end my life with any regrets. I decided that a couple of years ago.
Mhm.
That's not the way that I'm going to live. I'm going to go all in. So,
Yeah. Commitments are not comfortable.
no.
And they really don't have anything to do with you being comfortable in the moment, right?
Mm-mm, not at all.
I agree 100% with you. Like, we don't regret the things that we did and didn't do well. We regret the things that we felt like we could have done and shied away from.
Mhm.
Like, that's what we regret. You talk to people who have, had a venture or, started a business or went a different path in their career and it didn't work out. Yeah, they may not be happy that it didn't work out, but they have a peace of mind. Like, at least I did it. Now I know that wasn't a good idea, or that wasn't meant for me, or God had a different plan for me, but they don't have the regrets at the end of that. What about making this personal? Where have you, in your journey, noticed that you were half-hearted committed and had to go all in career or anything?
There was actually a time a couple years ago. I don't remember the day or how it came about, but it was a small step for me that I feel like it was really important. I had noticed that if I was in conversation with someone at a summit or on the phone, and if I had something nice to say or complimentary, I would hold back. I would wait for a good time. And sometimes that moment would pass and I would regret that. So I decided a couple years ago that anytime I had something good, positive to say, I was going to say it in that moment and then let it be. So that was a commitment to myself, that my heart would be out there. And once I could vocalize what I was thinking, once I knew that I had it in my head, I could commit to something. Then it was one thing after another. Then it was, committing to training, doing the figure competitions, and then doing things in the office, one thing at a time, staying consistent. So it was small steps for me, but
even in those small steps, like, the first time you do that, like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to make a commitment to say the complimentary things in the moment, not wait. It wasn't easy, was it? Like, did you have to remind yourself, I'm supposed to say something complimentary here. I got to be true to that.
Yeah, there was that a little bit of anxiety.
Yeah.
Like, do it now, do it now.
Right. Don't go back on those commitments. So, okay. I think that's a great example, because commitment is a pretty profound word. There's a lot of weight to that. Like, you think about being committed to your spouse, or committed to your family, your career, whatever it may be, committed to your faith. I mean, these are pretty weighty topics, big subjects, but even commitment in the small things, right? I think you and I would both agree that it comes down to habits, right? So if you're making some habits of commitments, even in the small things, you can make commitments on bigger things. Almost sounds like if you can be found faithful in the small things, you can be found faithful in the larger things. So great.
Yeah, I was just as you were saying that, it brought me back to one of the audios that Tom was saying. I think it was in Success in Your Routine. Maybe he was saying that it's success. You need to practice that. It's not overnight. And I think that's a really good reminder. Commitment is the same thing.
Mm-hmm. With your mentorship and the people that you work with, not calling out anybody by name, but maybe looking at it in the general, the aggregate, where do you see them needing to make an all-in commitment? Or how many areas do you see them needing to make an all-in commitment? You have, for the listeners who can't see, she's smiling to me here. So obviously something needs to be said, but you have free range, right? We're not going to call anybody out by name, but if you had a moment to be completely real, you don't have to hold your words back, say, this is where you are not living up to your all-in commitment. Where would that be?
Yeah. Well, the first thing that comes to mind is I was talking to someone about the consult, and what I learned in conversation is that people were being treated differently, how they were coming in. For example, insurance person
Okay.
versus cash person.
Okay.
They would get a different type of consultation. And I wanted to explore that, so I started asking questions. Why are they treated different? Because this recording of the consultation doesn't seem like you know what you're doing.
Right.
And they said, well, I don't want to go through all of this process if they're not going to become a patient.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, let's roll this back. What do we actually think the consultation process does?
Mm-hmm.
No matter if you're insurance or cash based, this is putting everyone on the same page. You're treating everyone with respect. You're treating everyone with kindness. You're giving everyone the same amount of time and attention.
Mm-hmm.
And believe it or not, your insurance patients will see that.
Yep.
They'll likely respect and love you for that.
Yep.
Because quite possibly when they go to other practitioners, they're not being given the same kindness and respect.
Yes.
So you are actually doing yourself a disservice by not committing to this for everybody.
Right.
So after we had that conversation, they came away with better clarity that, if I'm going to do this, I got to do this for the goodness of humanity, for my patients. So does that help?
No, I think that's a great tangible example. I've been doing this work as well, and I was thinking about my own experience as you were talking about that, and I wish people would go all in for themselves. I've talked to so many people who do and work and give and toil for other people, which is great, right? I mean, it's a true testament to their servant's heart, and that is great. But you have to keep yourself in balance in that same time. Like, you cannot pour from the empty cup.
Mm-hmm.
And I know you know them too, that as long as things are easy and the time is there and the money is there or the energy is there, okay, I'll do my self-care. I'll do my prayer and my meditation, and I'll invest in my family, whatever. But as soon as it gets off kilter, one of the first things they abandon is what? All of that.
Mm-hmm.
Right? That's where I wish that, and that may sound funny for the quote unquote business consultant to say, but that's where I wish they would have that all in commitment. Like, have faith, trust that you don't have to be open every Saturday.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like, it's great if you can. It may be advisable even in your area. Maybe there's an emergency situation, but you need family time as well. You need R&R. And I just see that there's a very, very slippery commitment to themselves in that. Any feedback on that? You're nodding your head a lot. So,
well, that just goes back to regrets.
Yeah.
You keep that up. You give away your Saturdays.
Right.
If you have kids, they're older. Time is lost with them. Maybe with your spouse as well.
Yeah.
So,
like, what's the cliche on the deathbed is we don't wish that we had spent more time at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, exactly. 100%. When I was watching your video that you produced on commitment, I think you mentioned or correlated commitment and consequences. And I thought that was really insightful. I made some notes on that. Of course, I didn't bring the notes with me today, but it's up here in my memory banks. So can you connect those two words for us with commitment? Like commitment, consequences, what was that about?
So we have some, I don't want to call them low-level commitments, but if I were thinking about the same thing, then there are commitments just naturally in life that we have. Like, if I want to get my driver's license,
okay,
I've got to take the test.
Sure.
And then once they hand me my license, I've basically signed on the dotted line that I'm going to follow the rules. And if I don't, there's going to be a cop coming after me.
Right.
You get the ticket, you got to pay the price.
Right.
So there are natural consequences to the commitments that we make in life.
Mm-hmm.
Same goes for social media. I don't think we give it one second of a thought when we sign up for an account. But sure enough, there are terms and conditions
that we don't read.
And if you don't behave yourself on social media, they are going to take your account away. They may ban you for life. And that's a consequence. And we naturally do these things through life, knowing that we have to behave ourselves. But do we put the same commitment into more important things in our life? Okay,
so the low level, the routine, the mundane, I'm searching for a word or a phrase that would really describe that. But those everyday type of commitments, there are consequences that come with those. And we sign up for that, right? Do we have that same mentality with the more important stuff, the bigger stuff? Okay.
Where the cost is more in terms of consequence.
Right. And the consequence isn't necessarily the struggle of what the commitment means, but maybe what you're missing out on down the road. Yeah. Commitment does take sacrifice though, doesn't it? Like life commitments. And if you're married, you know that you've committed to that and you've sacrificed for that, right? People who are single for their whole life, I've noticed that it doesn't seem like they continue to grow and develop as people. Like I'm a much different person today because my wife has made me be a bit different person, right? Like I've had it. I'm not saying it's all for the better, Dr. Melissa. I mean, let's be honest about that. No, I'm just teasing. Thankfully, she doesn't listen to the podcast, so I can say what I want. But we get in those commitments, and there's sacrifice that comes from that. And if we don't honor that commitment, if we don't fight for that sacrifice, then consequences are coming, right? The home life won't be good and healthy and nurturing, and there's going to be strife and struggle and that kind of thing. It's like that in everything, right? What would you say to someone who made commitments before, but has never really buckled down, never really followed through? Like in their mind, it's already defeatist because, oh, here we go again. I'm going to make another commitment and I'm probably not going to whatever. What would you say to encourage that person or give them some guidance about this time, this go around?
I think we all share those experiences in life. So I think number one, understanding that having that fear of failure yet again or having doubts, I don't think that's unique. We all have that. And I think once you realize that's something we've all been through, you have to be brave enough to lay down your past and try again. And having the support of others is really important. Like with the things that I've achieved in life, I can share those things with family, but my greatest support comes from, having my mentors around me, having people that I look up to. I appreciate their feedback and their encouragement. So, voicing that to someone who can actually fill your cup, I think that's important. And
so maybe you're the right person making the right commitment. Maybe you just haven't been successful in the past because you didn't have the right team around you, the right support, the right encouragement, the right accountability, maybe?
Maybe.
Yeah, I think that's valid for sure. I know that you are committed because we talk in between these podcasts, right? We have a regular conversation. I know that you have a commitment to give back. You mentioned that, I think, earlier on this podcast about where you use your time now. Like, you don't have to do this thing called mentorship. You don't have to be here today, giving up time from your family. So why do you do it? Why do you make that commitment when you don't have to?
I've been there. I've
been there. Where have you been?
I've had the doubts, the frustration, the commitments that didn't pan out, doing things halfway. I've been through it all. And I feel like now that I've been there and on the other side of it, I have something to offer, not only just from the knowledge side of it, but also from the heart side of it, the encouragement. And if we're looking at where chiropractic is going, I feel like I need to be here for the good of not only the doctors, but chiropractic as a whole.
Yeah, you were committed for sure in the field of chiropractic. You spent a lot of time and effort, money in pursuing advanced certifications, right? And what was that technique again?
I did orthospinology. So that's a process to get certified in that. And then I did the diplomate program for upper cervical. And that's another 3-year commitment, traveling all over the U.S.
Not easy.
No.
Yeah. So the commitment that you're having now in your quote unquote retirement is really the same commitment that you've always had. It's serving the profession, serving the people who are either making up the profession or being helped by the profession. Like it's still the same thing, just it's a different pathway now than what it was before. So I love that. It's awesome. All right. Anything else on commitment? Like if you had a final word for everybody, what would you say about commitment as a final encouragement or word?
You deserve to know who you are, who you're supposed to be as a leader on this earth, in your town. You owe it to yourself to see what you're made of, to see what you could be, to see the impact that you could have. So there's no reason to not move forward in encouragement and determination. Just do it, get it done. Try your best. If you need help, ask for it, but don't back down.
I love how matter of fact people are when they've had a life of commitment and making commitments. Like, just do it, get it done, don't back down. Like you're saying that just like, this is how it is, right? There's no mystery behind it. There's no like secret sauce. Just do it. That's a great final word. If you need help with your commitments, if you don't even know where to start with commitments, we are here to serve you. We AMC aligned, and we would be delighted to have you as part of our family. We look forward to joining you on the next podcast. Until then, God bless. Follow our show. You can share it with friends, of course, and we'd love for you to contact us at mailbag@amcfamily.com. In addition, you're always invited to attend or join us at a summit. Of course, registration is required. And we would love for you to check out the loads of free content we provide to social media every single week. Until next time.